Alrighty, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Everyday Theology with Joey Anderson, which is turning into uh, Everyday Ranting with Joey Anderson. Um, no, I'm joking. But I know the last couple weeks have been maybe, I don't know if you would say antagonistic, not trying to be. There are things that I'm very passionate about that we have talked over. Not that I haven't been passionate in the past, but things maybe I get a little bit heated and passionate about. And so today, I kind of wanted to continue. No, probably not necessarily continue, but I want to talk about a slightly different topic, something that I'm equally passionate about that has made an impact in my life. So thank you so much for tuning in this week. I appreciate you guys each week tuning in as we continue this project till the end of this year. It's crazy to think that we have been almost, oh my gosh, 11 months in now. Wow, crazy to think about. And I think I've only missed a couple weeks, so appreciate your forgiveness on those couple weeks that we missed. Can't bring those back, but we can keep pressing forward. And so I do encourage you guys, if you do have questions for the podcast, if you have questions you want to talk about things, I mean, biblical topics, worldly topics, life topics, just legitimately anything. I'm more than happy to talk about anything on this podcast. Would deeply appreciate your guys' questions, your time to consider. So yeah, please do send those questions. You can either, I mean, if you feel open enough to share them publicly, you can comment them on YouTube or Spotify here, or you can email me at josephporter.anderson@gmail.com. You can do either one of those two spots. Cool little thing that I've been wanting to share for a while. Hopefully, maybe I'll post about it on Facebook here shortly. Is this January I get the opportunity to speak and to partner with Grace Adventures Camp. Grace Adventures Ministries is what the name of their ministries now. And I am going to be doing one of their winter jams, and be able to speak to their students there that are coming up for that. And I'm super excited and super grateful for the opportunity, and super excited to have that and to see where the Lord leads that. So if you would join me in praying for those students who I'll have the opportunity to share Jesus with. Pray for their individual hearts. Pray for the ministries that are reaching them weekly, whether that be a church ministry or a parachurch ministry. Would you just join me in praying for these students before that God would tend the soil to their hearts, and that we would plant seeds or water seeds that have already been planted to the glory of God and for His kingdom and for the good of those who would come to know Him. So yeah, so if you would join me in that, and kind of on that message, it kind of is a good segue to. So one of the things that I want to talk about today with everyone, maybe a little bit of a lighter note. Um, I've just been thinking about this recently. A couple things. Again, it's interesting because last week it was something I was talking about was just this idea of like struggling to know what to talk about, and then just had a couple things kind of hit me, and it was like, wow, that's what I'm going to talk about. And this week, actually, as I was going about my days, I came across this quote that stuck out to me, and then I was thinking about a song that it's one of my top 5 favorite songs I've ever heard or listened to. Um, and then it just kind of resonated in my heart that I was like, this is something that I've wrestled with, that I've struggled with over the years in my life. And I have an opportunity now, I have a platform to share encouragement and share my conviction on this and speak to what I believe is truth. And even as I'm sitting here and I'm recording this, another thing comes to mind. So kind of what I want to talk a little bit about today is it kind of is on identity. It definitely, I think, touches on it, scrapes the side of it. Um, but I want to talk about the impact of one action, one person in our lives, um, and how we should never take the that for granted. And I mean that in essence of ourselves and the impact that we have on others, and I mean that on those around us and the impacts that they have on us. And so I look back, right? 29 now, and I look back on the like it's so easy to generalize our lives, I think. Like I look back and I'm like, yeah, I can take wrap these 5 years together and wrap them into a nice bow, and I can say, okay, I had this 5 year period, I had that 5 year period, or I can say, okay, I had this group of friends and I had that group of friends. Um, but when I begin to unpack those years and those friend groups and those relationships, what I see is individual people day in and day out who poured into me in spite of their own needs, desires in life that was, I mean, in some instances beating them down, in some instances, um, controlling their life. The people who took the time out of their day to influence me in a positive manner. And it was rarely, if ever, some big shot. It wasn't some big big name preacher or speaker or musician who fundamentally changed or influenced the trajectory of my life. It was my mom. It was my dad. It was my sister. It was my coworker Lori. It was my best friend Blake. It was my cousins. It was my uncle. It was my uncles. It was my aunts. There was this couple who were at my church every single Sunday that they saw me. I was never super close with my grandparents. Um, Both my mom's mom and then my dad's dad passed before I knew them. Before I was well, my mom's mom died a year in. But I was never really close with my grandparents, and so um, there was this couple at church, um, the Barringtons, and man, every single Sunday that I would go as a young kid who struggled so much with how he viewed himself and struggled to make friends and struggled to keep friends and struggled to see himself as valuable and someone that people enjoyed the company of. I'd show up and John would come over and shake my hand, and he would always make the same joke every single week. Um, he said, "Joe, I don't care what your parents say about you. I think you're a great man." And Paula would always, she was in a wheelchair, and she would always grab my hands and look me in the eyes and just ask me how I'm doing and checking in on me. And I think of, I mean, like that's one relationship out of many. And 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 the reality is these are not, I'm not coming before you today to tell you like these aren't pivotal moments. These aren't like the life changing, like you turn 16 and get your driver's license, or your wedding day, or the day that you graduate from college or high school, or your first raise, or like I'm not talking about these big huge monumental life moments. I'm talking about like the everyday the everyday you come in to work on Monday and your coworker sees you and just says, "Hey, how was your weekend?" Or "How's the kids?" Or "How's your wife or your husband?" Or "How's this?" Or "How's that going?" Or "I knew that you had talked about this new adventure that you're going on, and tell me about that." And "Hey, how's your relationship with God these days?" And just all these moments. And And I'm just like, I'm floored. I'm like looking back, and I didn't honestly expect to get emotional about this. Um, but I just look back and I see all these little moments of faithful people who just saw a need in the life of a lonely teenage boy and spoke truth into it repeatedly, again and again and again and again. And that quote that I made mention of earlier is by a guy named Gordon T. Smith, and I think it encapsulates kind of my heartbeat for this episode this week. He says, "Thus, when we speak of calling, we do so with the appreciation of the extraordinary potential of each person to make a difference for good. By this, I do not mean that everyone needs to be a hero, but rather in the midst of the simple ordinaries of everyday life, the work we do has the capacity to be good work that has profound worth and significance." I think I think maybe sometimes we either generalize or maybe we get too specific with calling, in the essence that calling is only ever a vocational thing. Like, oh, I've been called to do the Lord's work, so that looks like pastoring a church, or it looks like preaching, or it looks like teaching students at a youth retreat, or it looks like being a minister, ministering to, or being a missionary, right, out overseas, or in these areas that sometimes maybe we do we s- we make the calling too specific, and we don't understand it, or um we don't understand that calling is so much more. And so it might be even the same sense too, like with the idea of worship. We often look at worship as what we do on a Sunday morning, or when we meet as a church, whether that be a Sunday morning or another day of the week, um, as the singing that we do before the scriptures are opened, and before we read from God's word. But worship is so much more than that, in the essence that worship is our actions and our deeds before a holy God. And our calling is much more than anything can, and much more than just a vocational calling. It's a calling to live our lives in light of the impact and the influence that we have here on, and the people that we are surrounded by. And so it's like, I was just talking to somebody about this week, um, on this concept of, um, the impact that the individual person can have on another human being. And it is profound. And as I'm looking back and as I'm sharing these stories, I'm like realizing how blessed I am to know the people that I know, the people who have loved me, and seen me, and has spoken truth into my life. And so, like, what I want to do today is I want to encourage those listening to reconsider what it means to be called by God, in light of the life that you live. um, I don't just mean, right, like, and it will, and it does, and it should encapsulate your work and your family. And I mean, like, so from that standpoint, it should be like a work. You should seek to do what the Lord has called you to do in your workspace. But I want to take that farther, and I want to say, what is the calling of God on, when we talk about calling, what does it mean for your family? What does it mean for your, um yeah, like your husband, your wife, your kids, your spouses, your spouse, your siblings, your parents, your, uh yeah, like these areas. What does it mean for that? And so to, go back to that quote, we I want to speak to the idea that we develop an appreciation of the extraordinary potential of each person to make a difference for good. There's this song that I love, um that is called One More Song for You, and it's by the band Casting Crowns, and it's in my top 5 for sure, maybe even top 3. It's definitely a top contender for my favorite song of all time. And I think what stands out so profoundly to me is this idea that so if you never heard of it, it's just the main concept of the song is to say, God, it's so easy to get lost in this sea of everyone who's come before me and everyone who will go after me, and uh, all the work that has been done before I've even entered onto the scene, and to know the giants who have gone before me, the giants of the faith who have gone before me, and all their incredible actions and their incredible deeds, and to say, God, what do I even have to offer? What do I even have to offer that could even compare to what you have done or what has been done in your name? And it kind of boils down like the chorus of the song is just a heartfelt, like I mean, like legitimately, it's like a heart cry of you know this idea uh, of saying like I'm gonna put one more hand in the air, say that you are holy, like one more voice, um one more life lived for you, and even if it gets lost in everything else, it's like it's all I want to do, um and it kind of ends, the course ends in a room, or sorry, it says, in a world that's lost its song, show them there's still room for one. And I was thinking recently about this idea of like that torch. I was actually talking to my cousin who's struggling with cancer right now. Just this past Sunday we were talking, and this this I this vision, or this imagery got brought forth into my head. And I don't know how much time they have left. I don't know how much time I have left. To be honest with you, to be quite frank, it could be 10 years, it could be 15 years, it could be 40 years, it could be tomorrow. And I don't know. But one thing I find profound is I have the opportunity right now to bear the torch, to carry the baton to the next generation. And there was a generation before me who did the same thing and passed it on to me. I think of my dad. I think of some really profound people who have made an impact in my life who now no longer with us. And they carried the torch, and they passed it on. And now I have the 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 honest to God privilege and joy to carry that torch, to pass on that baton to the next generation. And when we consider that that part that we play in the relay, that short snippet, when we consider how short just that is, and um, I would encourage and hope that it would lead us to take our role in our situation seriously, to say, okay, I have this moment in front of me. That's what I have. I don't have tomorrow. I have this moment in front of me to change the world. And I don't mean in the essence of, you know, that the whole world's going to know your name, but maybe one person, and their world can be changed by the level of care and impact that you show in their lives, that you show up, that you are consistent, that you show love and compassion, that you talk to them about the grace and the mercy and the life of Christ, and a God who loves them and cares deeply for them. And in that essence, right, you and I don't need to be heroes, but rather, like this quote says, in the midst of the everyday, the simply ordinary experiences of our everyday life, the the coming and going from the grocery store, the 8 hours or more that we put in at work, the the meals that we sit around the table and eat with family and friends, the game nights that we have with friends, the laughter and the tears that are shared, both in joy and in sorrow, at weddings and at funerals, that all of these moments are moments that passes by quickly. And when we talk about calling on our lives, we talk about those everyday moments. And my deep, deep, deep encouragement to you is that you would see them not as wasted time, not as the mundane life that you are simply trudging through to get to the next big, profound moment of your life, whether that be buying a house or getting married or having a kid, or you take that, you replace X, Y, or Z with whatever is in your life that you're eagerly waiting for right now, that you just that is so tempting to take the everyday moments of your life and just create B-roll out of them. My encouragement to you is to seek to understand the impact that those moments have, because there very well could be somebody in your life today who was like me, lonely and bitter and hurting and feeling forgotten. And the words that you say and the actions that you take could make a profound impact in that one person's life, for them to see and to savor God and to feel loved and to say no to those suicidal thoughts and those things that they struggle with. Um and so it's my encouragement is to not take these things for granted, and that you would pray and be in consideration for those around you, and that you would live your life boldly enough with compassion and care to consider the impact that you have on those who are around you. Um, don't just assume that it's the job of the pastor or the worship leader or the youth pastor or anyone else in your life to share that and to walk with that, but be that person, be that active person in the lives of those around you, to share Jesus and to glorify God and to love well those around you that God has placed in your life. Um, it is it is profound, the impact and the joy that there is in making much of Christ and of God in the world around us. Um, so take hold of those moments, be an encouragement, be a light. I know, like I said, the last few weeks that we've talked, been a little bit more harsh, maybe, a little bit more straightforward. But I did want to take the time today to talk about something that I'm passionate about, and to honestly, as I'm sitting here and I'm talking about it, I don't know who's listening, and I don't know if you know me or you don't. But to those who were faithful to God in my life, thank you. Thank you for your love and your compassion. Thanks for showing up and being the hands and feet of Jesus to me. Um, you may never know. You may never know the impact that your words and your actions had in my life, but Christ definitely used you, and I'm thankful. So thank you. And I would encourage you today, if you are listening to this, and there's somebody in your life who's made a profound impact in your life for in your walk with Christ, and and who has brought joy to your life. And even if it was just one day for one smile, maybe reach out and just say thank you and encourage them back. And then take that baton that you've been passed and pass it along. Pass it along. And what you'll see is, if we do a whole lot more of that and a whole lot less of plugging into the stream of news and media, what you'll see is that your world will change. Because you're changing it, and you'll make a profound impact. And I think that that's worth doing. So that's my encouragement today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today to another episode. I appreciate you all. I pray that if you have found this episode to be encouraging in the slightest or uplifting to you, would you consider liking, sharing, and subscribing? Every like, every share, every subscription, every comment goes a huge way in getting this podcast in the hands of more people. And that's my biggest hope, is just to be able to share God and share Jesus in our little slice of the internet, and hope that we leave it better than when we found it. So thank you so much for tuning in. Pray that you all have a blessed day, and I will see you next week.